بدر جميل
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallim. Nawaitu ta'allum wa ta'alim wa tadhakkura wa tadhkir wa naf'a wa intifa' wa ifada wa istifada wal hath ala tamassuki bi kitabillahi wa sunnati rasulih sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam wa du'a ila al-huda ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه في كل لحظة أبدا على نعم الله وفضاله. اللهم آتنا من لدنك رحمة وعلمنا من لدنك علما سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم ألهمنا علما نفقه به أوامرك ونواهيك وارزقنا فهما نعرف كيف ناجيك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم نسألك فهم النبيين وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين في عافيتي يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أغنى بالعلم وزينا بالحلم وأكرمنا بالتقوى وجملنا بالعافية يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم إنا نستودعك ما قرأناه من نقرأ في هذا المجلس وما قبله وما بعده فاحفظه علينا حتى ترده إلينا وقت احتياجنا إليه يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أكرمنا بنور الفهم وأخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وافتح لنا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم يا مقاليد الأمور كلها بيده وإليه يرجع الأمور كلها. يا فتاح يا عليم يا فتاح يا عليم يا فتاح يا عليم افتح علينا فتحا قريبا. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وسد لساني واهدي قلبي وافعل كذلك بأحبابي أبدا وارزقنا كمال فتوح العارفين والفقه في الدين مع كمال الإخلاص والصدق واليقين والعافية وغنى ونسل وحفظ والنفع والانتفاع وخير الدارين وعلوم الأولين والآخرين. آمين. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Now we're continuing with our lesson. We're continuing with our lesson. And just to go a brief overview of the first year in Medina and what happened. Right? And we've been going through this in the past few lessons. But today, inshallah, we'll be entering into the Battle of Badr. Right? We're going to mention a few things about Sayyidah Aisha as promised last week. Right? So I'm going to say a few things about her. Right? This is this book that I actually usually will refer to, At-Tayyibat At-Tayyibin. Right? The pure for the pure. Right, those who are pure are for those who are pure. Right, this is a book that speaks about all the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and their manaqib, right, and their stations, the hadiths that there is around them, and all the wives are found in this book. And specifically for Sayyidah Aisha, right, I took this the section on Sayyidah Aisha with alhamdulillah with Habib's daughter, Sayyidah Aisha. So the Aisha taught us about Sayyidah Aisha, and she taught us about Sayyidah Khadija also, right? So they used to, have like dawras lah, right, on the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And she would be the person whom we would call to actually give us the lessons, right? So before we go into that, just a brief overview about what happened in the first year of after Hijrah, right? In this first year of after Hijrah, right? So basically last week we mentioned about the treaty that they had with the Jews. We spoke about the treaty with the Jews and what were the conditions in the treaty, right? So basically, this was the first time, in perhaps, it's something that is very rare in the past, right? For conquering people, or for the majority to have a treaty with the minority and to protect the rights of the minority, right? So this is something that is highly advanced, right, in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to actually do. Of course, by the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So we know that he actually made a treaty with the Jews, right? And that was something that he upheld, but the Jews did not uphold. Right? They didn't uphold this treaty that they had with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? Rather, they betrayed Rasulullah SAW, each of them, every one of the 3 tribes of the Jews that were in Medina that made this treaty with Rasulullah SAW, every single one of them would betray this treaty. Right? Not even one of them will last through the treaty. Right? They will actually betray Rasulullah SAW, and we will as we go through the Sirah, we will see when they will actually betray Rasulullah SAW, and what is the result of them, right, having betrayed Rasulullah SAW. All right, that is the first thing that we had. We spoke about the munafiqun. Right, the hypocrites that were in Medina. This is not going to be a new problem. This problem was not present when they were in Mecca. It is something is new. It is something that is fresh. It's something that only it only came about because that Islam has become now popular. Right, because Islam has become popular at this point in time. So now, with the popularity of Islam, with the majority being Muslim, of course, there will arise this problem of the munafiq, right, the hypocrite. The hypocrite was not there in Mecca because it was not favorable to be a Muslim in Mecca. I mean, dunyawi wise, it was not favorable to be a Muslim. Of course, ukhrawi, wherever you are, whenever you are, it is always favorable to be a believer. Right. So, alhamdulillah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided us to this religion. Alhamdulillah, without us, even doing anything at all to deserve this belief, to deserve the belief of Islam. Right, so we spoke about the munafiqun, right? And in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the munafiqun, Rasulullah knew who they were by name. Right, he knew who they were by name. Right, but even then, Rasulullah did not allow anyone to take actions against the munafiqin. Like even the chief of the munafiqun, which is Abdullah bin Ubay. We spoke about his story and why he became a munafiq, right? Because he was aspiring to be the leader of the Aus and the Khazraj, the tribes of Medina, and then Rasul came and took his position. And everybody against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So not to be left, not to be shunned aside. Right? He just he wore the cloak of Islam. Right? But he was not a believer at all, but he was actually conspiring with the disbelievers to get rid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he's the chief of the munafiq, and he's munafiq. Right? He's really kafir. Right? He's kafir in the inside. He's not even a believer at all. Right? And he's just showing that he's a believer because he wants to maintain popularity with the people of Medina. Right? His son is a true believer. His son Abdullah bin Ubay, right? His son is a true believer, and his son knows that his father is a munafiq. They know it's clear that his father is munafiq. And once Abdullah bin Ubay, he said something that clearly showed his nifaq against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And his son came and said to Ya Rasulullah, give me the command, and I will strike the head of my father. I will strike his head off because of he's a munafiq, right? Why do you want him amongst our ranks? He's going to corrupt. Right, people from inside, and and the munafiq is a bigger problem than the kuffar, because the kuffar are external enemies, right? So they can, and you can always anticipate, right, when the enemy from outside is going to attack you, right? But the munafiq, they are internal enemies, right? So they cause cracks within the ranks of the Muslims, which we will see later on when we enter into the lives of the Sahaba after Rasulullah's death, right? Whereby the munafiq really they broke the ranks of the believers. Right, because when they infiltrated into the ranks of the believers, and they began to spread whispers, right, about Sayyidina Uthman, about Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, right, when they begin to spread, then this disease is like a virus, right? It spreads it's like a parasite, like it's munafiq, right? It spreads everywhere, right? And then even believers, they begin to have doubt, or they begin to be not sure about what they believe in, because the munafiq are whispering, right? And the munafiqun, right, they exist till today. They're very wild, they're very alive and well, right, till today, the munafiqun. But in today's time, there are two types of munafiqin. The first type are those who are really not Muslim inside. They're really, and they know they're not Muslim, but they are pretending to be Muslims, right, to enter the ranks of the Muslims and to create a discord, right, between the believers. And that's the best way. You enter, you cause them to fight amongst each other, and then they will not be united, and they will be easily overcome, right, by these believers. The other type of munafiq that we have in our time are those who are believers on the inside. Right, they're actually believers on the inside, right, but the way they behave is as if they are not believers. Right, their behavior is as if they are not believers, but they're believers on the inside. Right, and it could be like those who actually they support and they are for, right, the ways of these believers, right, and against the ways of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba. Right, that is the type of munafiq. Right, and Rasul mentioned about the khisal of the munafiqin, right, the traits of the munafiqin. There are a few hadiths. There are several hadiths where he mentioned it. Some hadiths he will say 3 traits. Some hadiths he will say 4 traits. Some he will go 5 traits. Right, he will speak about the traits of those who are munafiq, right, not in essence, right, but just in their behavior. right? That, for example, the hadith that you mentioned last week, right, is that when they speak, they lie. Right, this is first trait of the munafiq. When they speak, they lie. And we have amongst the believers who do that. When they speak, they lie. Right, they're liars. Right, believers are not liars. We don't lie. Right, and then the second one, we don't even make, we don't even lie out of joking. Right, we don't even joke and lie. Right, believers, you're not supposed to lie at all. Qat. Right, you don't lie at all. The second one, Rasulullah in the hadith, right, that if you trust them, they go against your trust. They betray you. Right, if you trust them, they betray you. If they make a promise, they break their promises. Right, so believers, if we have these traits, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us, we have the traits of the munafiq. I have the traits of the hypocrites. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from such traits. Alright, so we spoke about that, right? And then so now we spoke about also the brotherhood between the believers and the Ansar and the Muhajirun. Right, those who migrate and the people of Medina, they were brothers. They were made brothers. Right, so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he first entered into Medina and he saw the Muhajirun, and there were not many, right, there were just a few. Right, maybe the Muhajirun maybe about less than 100. And people of Medina are a few hundred. Right, so it's a small town. It's still considered a small town. I mean, in Singapore, any school you go into is a few hundred students. Right, so Medina was that. Right, Medina was a few hundred people, population size. Right, it wasn't even 1,000 people. It was just a few hundred people. Subhanallah, Medina, it was very small. Right, it's a small oasis town. You would say a village. You will say a village, that formed around an oasis. Right, so when the Muhajirun came from Mecca and left all their things behind, they came empty-handed. Right, so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to ease the situation, right, between the Muhajirun and the Ansar, he made a one-on-one pair up. Right, meaning that this person is responsible for this person, by name. Right, so he would call, like for example, Sayyidina Ka'ab bin Malik. He would call Sayyidina Muhammad, Talha bin Ubaidillah. Right, and then he would say, okay, you two are brothers. Then he will name them. Right, and he will call another Sahaba from Muhajir and Ansar, and you are brothers, and he will name them. Right, and then and this was a strong brotherhood. Right, it was legal in the religion. It was like an aqd. Right, it was like you would say there is this legal Sharia bond. Right, that brother, the Ansar, it's not like but from his own goodness or virtue, but it was wajib on him. It was compulsory on him to look after his brother Muhajir. Right, he had to look after. It was compulsory. Right, so it was something that was in the Sharia. And at first, in the beginning of the Sharia, they used to inherit from each other. Even lots of inheritance came down on their accounts, but thereafter it was removed. Right, the law was removed between brothers in Islam. Right, but basically they were brothers like that. And when two of them would die in a battle, right, then Rasulullah would join them in the same grave. Right, because they were brothers in this world, they are brothers in their death. Right, they will actually be joined in their same grave. Right, and actually Sayyidina Ali, he came later. He came late and he found that he had no brother, right? Because Rasulullah had not made a brother for him. And at this point, we have the famous hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when Sayyidina Ali came, complaining, "Ya Rasulullah, you didn't give me a brother from the Ansar." And the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "You are my brother." Right, at that point, he made a brotherhood bond with him and Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Right, so that is of the stations of Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And we have to understand that the Sahabas, they have great stations with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so you see what has happened in Medina right now. He has come into Medina. Right, he has built a community center, which is the masjid. Right, this is where the community will come, and they will congregate. Right, they will discuss matters there. Right, they will have education there. They will be taught there. Right, and they will have their prayers there. Right, this brings the unity of the community. Within the community, there are minorities. Right, these believers and the Yahud. Right, these believers are basically there. Right, they do whatever they want to do. They don't really bother anybody. Right, and eventually most of them will become Muslim anyway. Right, you have the hypocrites, which you can't really do much about because they won't admit that they're hypocrites. Right, they stand in the ranks of the believers and they are parasites. Right, within the ranks of the believers, you can't do much about them. Right, and Rasulullah would never judge on a hypocrite. Right, only after his death, then he would not pray over the hypocrite. Right, and Sayyidina Huzaifa thereafter, Sayyidina Huzaifa was the only Sahaba, right, the Sahabi who was told by name who are the hypocrites. So if he knew a hypocrite has passed away, he would not pray over the hypocrite. Right, like a real hypocrite, real hypocrite, meaning that he's kafir in his core. Right, real hypocrite. Right, so that's what he did, and then we also see, right, that he, to further the unity in this new community, right? Because you have two groups of people coming together, being forced to live together, right? So he had to go through lengths, right, to strengthen the unity in this new Muslim community that is just being born to, right? So it's just being given birth to, right? It is going to grow, right, and prosper, and this community will be the core of Islam, right, from where Islam was spread to all nations, right, worldwide. Right, so you understand the importance of this community, this one in Medina. So you mentioned last week that the hijrah is not about fleeing. It's not a fleeing. The hijrah is to go to a place whereby a healthy community can be built, because it couldn't be done in Mecca. Right? They had to go somewhere, and that's why everybody had to take part. And nobody was to be left behind, even if you were not being persecuted in Mecca. Even if you're having a nice time or a comfortable time in Mecca, you still had to do the hijrah. Right? It was compulsory on every believer to do the hijrah unless something held them behind. Right? Like their family, there were those who, their own family, locked them up, tied them up, kept them in the house, refused to let them join Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? And there were those also, as Sayyidina Abbas, the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was a spy for the Muslim. He was a Muslim secretly. So the disbelievers, the kafir, they didn't know that he was Muslim. Right? So he was a spy for the Muslims. So he remained in Mecca, right, on the order of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he ordered his uncle, remain in Mecca, cover up your Islam, don't let people know that you are a Muslim, right, and be our spy. So whenever anything will be discussed in Mecca about attacking the Muslims, Sayyidina Abbas, right, he would send a messenger to Medina to inform Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so you see, it's all strategy. It's all, a lot of effort is being put into building this community. So it's not like simply like, oh, let's, we're having a hard time in Mecca, let's go to Medina. Dah. And then let's go to Medina, we're going to stay in Medina for until we can go back to Mecca. No, right? It was actually, it was very well thought out plan of what's going to happen in Medina, and they were not even planning to come back to Mecca. They will only come back to conquer and go back, right, to Medina, which means Medina is the place for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam till he dies. It's going to be his place, right? It's basically, he has moved to Medina and is staying in Medina, whether or not Mecca is a place for believers or not, right? So you understand what's going on here. On top of that, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he entered into Medina, so you now have the social aspect, right, whereby he guarded, right, the unity of the people in Medina, and the minorities, right, they are all under the same community, right? The Jews, they had to pay a tax, a form of tax, right, because the Muslims were developing the community, right, and the Muslims were also protecting the community, right? So they had to pay a form of tax, right? On top of that, right, there was also an economical development, right, in Medina, whereby Rasulullah SAW, when he entered into Medina, he saw that the Jews had conquered the markets. Right, wherever they go, they conquer the markets. Right? Even up till today, they conquer the markets. Right, so they have conquered the markets. Right, so he made a market, right, sprout out from the people of Medina, right, for them to establish their own market, because the Jews were basically monopolizing, and when they monopolize, they jack up prices. Right, that's basically their game in life, right? They monopolize markets, and then they control the prices, right? And they will jack up the prices whenever they want to, if they want more money, and then they will monopolize the interest, the loans, whatsoever. Up till today, right? Up till today, the same story with them, right? That's how they actually, they gain so much. They control the economy of the world, right? They control the economy of Allah, but of course, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is above that. All right. So here, right, we will now, so you see how he has established a community, so economically established, right, socially, right, the unity of the community, right, so things that were important, right, the peace of the community, right, so that you can actually have something that will flourish. Right, you can't have, weakness in this community, because, otherwise the community will be bothered by, the economical weakness, or their social weakness, or, problems within the community. Even then, there were still issues, right, within the community in Medina, right? Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now today we're going to go into the military aspect of the community, right? When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when the verses of fighting were revealed, I mean permitting fighting and physical combat in battle, right, was permitted. We will mention about that. Before that, we're going to mention about Sayyidah Aisha. Right, we're going to spend some time speaking about Sayyidah Aisha, right, and her station with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and also her station amongst the believers, right? So Sayyidah Aisha, right here, right. So Sayyidah Aisha, we understand that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in Mecca, right? And after the death of Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha, I'm going to repeat some things, right? But just for us to refresh our memory, right? After the death of Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha, right? The disbelievers, they saw how it had affected Rasulullah, the death of Sayyidah Khadija, and how much he missed her, right? So they came to her, they came forth, and they offered, why don't you marry? Right? Why don't you marry? And at first he rejected, right, the proposal about marriage, the idea of marriage in its entirety, right? He rejected the idea of marriage, which all these hadith people reject, right? Those who want to put blame on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? Because from all these hadiths, you see, he's not interested in anything that is of the nafs, right? He's somebody who has no nafs. He's killed his nafs. His nafs is basically, right, to stand up and worship Allah subhanahu wa taala. That is his nafs. Right, he has no nafs, to run after women, right? And it's unbecoming, right, of a prophet, because a prophet is someone, right, who denounces the world, right? So while they marry, and it's a sunnah to marry for the followers to follow, right, but they're not obsessed, right, with this, with this lowly thing of the nafs. He's not even someone who runs after sleep and eat and food and whatsoever, right? So what makes us think that that he would actually may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our thoughts, right, from being influenced by those who are corrupt, right? They would ever run after anything that is lowly like that, right? Whereas we know that in Sayyidah Aisha's hadith, they will get up in the night and he will pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, choosing, right, standing in prayer over being next to his wife, right? And that shows that someone, where's your nafs? Is your nafs with your wife, or is your nafs if your prayer, if you stand the entire night, right, leaving the sight of his wife? Most husbands, they would want to be with their wife in the night, right? They wouldn't want to stand up in the cold of the night and take their wudu and pray until their heels crack, right? I mean, that shows a lot about the character of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? So it's really people who Sayyidina Muhammad, right? People who deny this, right? Or people who claim, right, that he was, after woman, he had so many wives, and they don't understand Sirah whatsoever. They don't even learn Sirah. Probably they would never open up a book on Sirah, probably, right? That's why they are able to say all kinds of claims, right, that is completely, blasphemous onto Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so here, right, it was Sayyidah Aisha, right, so Sayyidah Aisha, right, Sayyidina Muhammad, right, there's so many things, there's quite a number of things to say about her. So the first thing that we say about her marriage to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So when he was proposed, two of the women, right, and he was proposed Sayyidina Sauda and Sayyidina Aisha. These are from the Sahaba at first. They proposed this to him at first. Sayyidina Sauda, Sayyidina Aisha. I mentioned this last week. We just repeat it, as to bring the story together, right? So when he proposed, Rasulullah sallallahu, he chose Sayyidina Sauda, right, because she was closer to him in age. She was closer to him in age, and he had young children underneath him, right? Even though Sayyidah Fatima was at this point a teenager, right? She still wanted, there to be an older woman around in his household. He married Sayyidah Sauda, and he was married to her. He was monogamous with her, right, for about 3 years. Right? At the same time, right, a dream came out to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? And Sayyidina Muhammad. And he was, in the dream, right, he saw someone carrying a young girl, right, and the girl was covered in silk, right, and then he was told to open up the silk, right, and to pull apart the silk, and when he pulled apart the silk, right, he saw Sayyidina Muhammad, right, so he saw that it was Sayyidina Aisha, right, and it was told to him that Sayyidina Aisha, right, that this is your wife, and this is going to be your wife. Right, so thereafter, he mentioned to Sayyidina Abu Bakr, right, and Sayyidina Abu Bakr, of course, was thrilled with the idea, right, and Sayyidina Aisha, she herself narrates, she said she was 6 years old, so very young, 6 years old, right, and she was playing in the garden, right, in outside the house, when her mother came, right, and took her and brought her into the house and got her prepared, right, that means, dressed her up and everything. She was 6. Rasulullah did not enter into her yet. Right, he waited until she was 9 when she got her menses and she got the body of a woman. Right, then only he went to Sayyidina Aisha, and that was in Medina. Right, so he was wed. Right, he was married to Sayyidina Aisha in Mecca. Right, they were wed, but he did not go to her. Right, he didn't go to her. We know that he was married to Sayyidina Aisha because at the Hijrah, when Rasulullah went to the house of Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, right, and he asked, "Is there anybody here?" Because they were talking about something secret, the Hijrah. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr said, "No one except your wife." Right, except your wife, meaning Sayyidina Aisha. Right, she's the one who's here. And she's a young girl at that time. And we know Sayyidina Aisha, she was born into Islam. Right, her parents were already believers, right, and then she was born. right? Because she was 6 at this time, and Islam had been in Mecca for 13 years by the time she actually married Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? So which is why she never really remembered Sayyidah Khadijah. And she was too young when Sayyidah Khadijah passed away. She was probably 4 years old when Sayyidah Khadijah passed away, right? So, or not even 4 years old at this point, probably she was 3, right? 3 years old, 3 years before Sayyidah Khadijah passed away. Then she was born. Right, so she didn't know who is Sayyidah Khadijah, but she hears a lot about Sayyidah Khadijah from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But she never met Sayyidah Khadijah before in her life. She didn't even know who it was. Right, Sayyidah Khadijah radiallahu anha. Right, but she would say in some of her hadiths that she was never jealous of any of Rasulullah's wives except Sayyidah Khadijah. Or she was so jealous of Sayyidah Khadijah. She was, was beyond jealousy of Sayyidah Khadijah. And there was once whereby whereby Rasulullah showed goodness to the family of Sayyidah Khadijah. He used to send food, right, to Sayyidah Khadijah's sons, right, son and daughter. Right, they were still alive and they were believers. Right, they are the stepchildren of Rasulullah sallallahu right, from Sayyidah Khadijah. And Rasulullah used to send food to them whenever he would have any food. And Sayyidah Aisha once said, isn't it enough for you? Right, this old woman, right? Because out of a jealousy, al-ghira, right? Isn't it enough for you, this old woman, right? That you keep going on and on about her, and then Sayyidah Aisha said, she said the wrong thing. She said, hasn't Allah replaced her with better? Right? So she said in the hadith, I was so full of jealousy. I was so jealous that I had to say it. But the moment I said it, I saw the face of Rasulullah change. Right? I completely regretted that I actually said that Allah has replaced better than her and Rasulullah. You must understand Sayyidah Aisha. When you look at her and the hadith from Sayyidah Aisha, you must see a young girl. Right? So don't say that, how can she say that? What kind of, she's a young girl. She's just growing up. She's growing up. She's a teenager. She's young. So she, mashallah, you will see the hadith, like how they progress. And from a young girl, of age of 9, 10, 11, right? And then to the point where she was 18, right? When the Rasulullah passed away. Right, so you will see the development of Sayyidah Aisha's, behavior. She became more mature as she grew older. She used to play tricks. She used to have, tantrums. She was younger. When she was younger, she used to, really, like, she would even, fight with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, argue with him, and she's a small girl. And you must understand, at this point when he married her, he's in his 50s. Like, he's an old man. Right, but she would talk back to Sayyidah Aisha to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she was, if you look at her hadith, she was somebody of angst. Right, she had that lah. But you see the tarbiyah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the nature of Rasulullah, right? She became molded and refined, right, by the end of his life. Right, so then she carried on thereafter as a very mature young lady, right, who would live till she would reach her 60s, right, and she would be teaching. She was a scholar of Islam, right, Sayyidah Aisha. And it's really, when you look into her life, there is no doubt why, there is no question why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered that Rasulullah marry her. Because she would memorize everything and she would ask all kinds of questions, right, to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, so when we enter into Medina at this point, we go into her story because at this point, the house of Rasulullah is being built. Right? And it's not a house; it's basically a room. Right, these are rooms, and every room, has his wife in there. Right, and one of the rooms belongs to his daughters. He had 2 daughters who were not married, Sayyidah Fatima and Sayyidah Kulthum. Sayyidah Fatima will marry very soon after Badr, right? And then thereafter, Sayyidah Kulthum would marry because Sayyidah Ruqayya would die during the Battle of Badr. She would pass away in the Battle of Badr. Right, so Sayyidina Muhammad, right, so there will be one room, right, that will be his for his daughters, right, they will occupy that room. And we will go into the story lah of Kulthum, and we must see from the point of view of this woman, right, when she's there with her sister, Sayyidina Fatima, and Sayyidina Ruqayya had just passed away. Sayyidina Khadijah passed away a few years before that, right? And then now Sayyidina Fatima is getting married. Right? Sayyidina Kulthum, there are narrations that showed how she actually was in tears, right, when the sister left the room, right, to be with the husband. Now she was the only one in the room, right? And one sister passed away, mother passed away, sister left, and she's there, and then her father's busy, right, with all of this war, and he has his wives, and he has his, he's the prophet, basically. He's the government of Medina, right? So there are narrations of Sayyidina Kulthum, right, being upset, right, or being sad lah, right, where she was. And there are further narrations of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam going to comfort her, right? So he didn't forget that he has a daughter, right, who is by herself, right? But thereafter, after several years, then Sayyidina Uthman, right, will propose to her, right, and then she would marry Sayyidina Uthman. But very soon thereafter, she would pass away. Right, so all of his daughters who passed away within his lifetime, except Sayyidah Fatimah Zahra. Right, she is the only one who will live, right, to see the death of Rasulullah. And even then, after he passed away, she could not stand life. Right, she basically died inside. Right, she was waiting for her own death. Right, 6 months thereafter, she passed away. Right, it's within 6 months of the death of Rasulullah, Sayyidah Fatimah Zahra, she passed away. Alright, so Sayyidah Aisha, going back to Sayyidah Aisha. So Sayyidah Aisha, right, one thing, we want to speak about the manaqib of Sayyidah Aisha. Right, the manaqib of Sayyidah Aisha, right? So there was once Sayyidah Aisha, she's one of the manaqib of Sayyidah Aisha, the manaqib and the virtues of Sayyidah Aisha. And one of the virtues of Sayyidah Aisha, right, is that she was known, without any doubt, to be the most beloved wife of Rasulullah after Sayyidah Khadijah. It means during the time where all the wives were alive, right? It means Sayyidah Khadijah's time is her. She's the queen of the queen. Nobody can compete with her. She is way ahead of everybody else, right? So when we say she's the most beloved wife, we mean after Sayyidah Khadijah, right? It's without question, right? That Sayyidah Aisha was the most beloved wife to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam after Sayyidah Khadijah. And there was once she asked, it's a hadith whereby she narrates, she said that she asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, how is your love for me, ya Rasulullah? Right, this is the question she will ask her husband, how is your love for me? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, it is like a knot in a rope. Like a knot in the rope, that is tight. And the more we pull, the tighter it gets. That means the more you fight or the more you disagree, the more when things are being pulled, there's a tighter you will get. It's like a knot in the rope. It's mashallah the way Rasulullah described it, it's so romantic. Who would describe, how's your love for you? People like that, my love for you is so much, kind of thing, like so not eloquent. Right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would describe his love to be so, in such an eloquent way, like a knot in a rope, ka uqadatil habl. Right? It's like a knot in the rope. Right? And Sayyidah Aisha, she understood what that meant. Right? That the more you try, to oppose me, the more I will love you, and the stronger our bond. The stronger this knot, is this knot can't be untied. Right? It's a strong knot. And every now and then, Sayyidah Aisha says, every now and then I will ask the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how's the knot? Right? She said, every now and then she says, ثم كانت تسأله بين الحين والآخر. Right? كيف العقدة يا رسول الله? Right? How is the knot, ya Rasulullah? How's it doing? Right? And he will say, it is as it was from the first time round. It has not been loosened. Right? It's still as tight as it was. Right? So Sayyidina Muhammad, right? And it was once asked of her, and she see, the beauty of her being his wife and someone, of high intellect. Right? She mastered hadith, and she mastered fiqh, she mastered medicine. She was actually a master of medicine. I say Aisha, right? And she learned medicine from who? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Medicine from the plants, from the trees, from what to do, right? When someone falls sick. So she was a master. She was a doctor in herself. So the Sahaba used to go to her to ask for medical advice, and she was a doctor in herself, Sayyidah Aisha. And she was a master of poetry, or she was a linguist, Sayyidah Aisha. So she was. You see somebody of very high intellect, right? And someone very sharp. Sayyidah Aisha, and so that's why she knew the laws of the religion. Fiqh, people go to her. Right? When it comes to hadith, she is the foremost. When it comes to hadith narrations of the woman, right? There is no one, right, who can compare to her. Right? In fact, even from the men, right? People, the Sahaba, they cannot compare to Sayyidah Aisha. And there was once they asked Sayyidah Aisha, tell us how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in the house. Tell us about his private life, right, in the house. And he said he is like any one of you, right? He would just he would help his family out, right, in the household. Like he would clean up, he would do housework, with his family, right? But he would tie his shoes, or he would sew his sandals. He would sew his own clothes, right? He would get his own water from the well, right? So he was somebody who he didn't like being served. Right, so he was someone who would actually go and do the work, right, himself. But she said, when the prayer is called, right, then when the prayer is called, it will be as if we don't exist. Right? He will just go do his wudu and he will go. It's as if his family does not exist. He will go to the prayer. Right? Means he will be called to his Lord, right? And he will just go, right, without seeing what his family is doing. Right? He will just go off. Right? So Sayyidah Aisha, right, and it's mentioned that Sayyidah Aisha said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Right, there was once, and the thing about Sayyidah Aisha was that, as with all the other wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, they did not bear children for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, Sayyidah Khadija was the only one who bare 6 children, right, and then there was a slave girl, Maria. Right, she was not a wife, but she was a slave girl. Right, and she bore 1 child for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Sayyidina Ibrahim alaihi salam. Right, but the other women, right, they didn't bear children from Rasulullah. There were those who had their own children from previous husbands. Right, but with Rasulullah, none of them would bear children. Right, and once Sayyidina Aisha said to Rasulullah, Ya Rasulullah, will you not give me a kunya? A kunya is basically, the mother of so and so, right, or the father of so and so. There is a kunya in Islam. So she asked, Ya Rasulullah, like, will you not give me a kunya? And here, the Hawaba said that it is a sunnah, right, for people to have kunya, even if you don't have a child to kunya to. Right, you have no child to be your kunya, right, but you choose the kunya for yourself. Right, so she asked Rasulullah, give me a kunya, right, and then he said to her, I will give you the kunya, right, of your son, right, Abdullah bin Zubair. Right, Abdullah bin Zubair, right, is the son of her sister, right, Asma. Right, Asma is her sister, right. So Abdullah bin Zubair is the husband, right. So she was called Abdullah, right, Abdullah after her sister's son, right. After the sister's son, she was given her kunya, right. So right, and there was once this one is a funny hadith, right. There was once Sayyidah Aisha, she got angry with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are a lot of stories of her getting angry with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She's younger. She's growing up, mashallah. You see her, and it's nice to see her progress, because it's this book, mashallah, they will give the progress of every sahabiya. Right, so they will speak about how she was when she was born, and when she was in the house of Rasulullah, and they will give the different hadith. It's hadith after hadith after hadith after hadith after hadith. Right, so it's delightful to read. Right? If you can have time, just read through this kind of books. Right, but it's not translated lah. I doubt it's translated. And Allahu Alam. Right, so there was once where Rasulullah said to Sayyidah Aisha, she said, when she was angry with him, and then he said to her, right, you can never hide your anger from me. I can always tell whenever you're upset with me. Right, so he says, you can never hide your anger from me. I can always tell whenever you're angry with me. And she said, how is that so? How do you know if I'm angry with you or not? Right, because sometimes she tries to hide. Right, how do you know if I'm angry with you or not? And he said, well, when you are pleased with me, right, you will call Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by Rabbi Muhammad. Right, you will say, by the Lord of Muhammad. But when you're angry with me, you will say, by the Lord of Ibrahim. You won't change the name to Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam. Right, and you won't say my name. And she said, Ajal ya Rasulullah. You got it right. You got it right. I will abandon your name when I'm upset with you. Right? I will take someone else's name. And that's how but their relationship is very cute lah. Right, the way they were with each other, right? And here she mentions the famous hadith on when they were once on an expedition, on a trip, and Rasulullah said to the other Sahaba, "Go ahead." Right, and here, mashallah, the way she actually describes this, she will say, she said that, خرجت مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في بعض أسفاره قبل أن أحمل لحم. Right, so what it means is that I went out versus one of his expeditions, right? قبل أن أحمل لحم, that means before I actually carried flesh. That means I gained weight. Before I gained weight, right? So in the past, when I was thin, when she was younger, she was thinner. When she grew older, she actually gained a bit of weight, but she was still light lah. They were always, very very thin, right? So and he told to the people, go ahead. So they went ahead, and they lagged behind, right? Then he turned to her and said, raise me. Right? The hadith is very clear. He said, turn to me, he said, قَالَ لِي أُسَابِقُكِ, right? Race me. Right? And he said, okay, let's race. Right? And they raced, and she won. And she won that race, right? Because she was light. Right? And after a while, she began to gain weight, right? And then they went again for a battle, right? For a journey, right? And he said to the people again, go ahead. Because to guard his wife's dignity. Because they want to play, right? So you don't want to do it in front of people. Right? You all go ahead, right? So and then she said, and then he turned to her and said, race me, right? So then she said, okay, let's race. Right? Of course, second time they raced, he beat her. Right? Of course, the first time, the ulama do say that the first time he gave her a chance. Of course he can beat her, right? But he just let her win. Right, so this is the way of Rasulullah, the way the character of Rasulullah. Of course he's faster than her. Of course. Whether or not she's lighter or not lighter, of course he's faster than her. Right, and he would just have fun, like it's not nice to always win your wife, let her win sometimes. Right, well, this time around he won her, this they have a challenge, and then he says this for that, this for that one, right? Then I beat you second time round. Right, there was once mentioned before, so he used to have a horse. And this horse was the fastest horse in Medina, right? And they would like to do horse racing. They actually would race their horses for fun, lah. It's just their entertainment, right? And this Rasul's horse would always win. Right? He was always win, right? So there was once the horse they raced, and the horse of Rasul lost. The Sahaba were upset. They were upset. How can his horse lose, right? And then they went to Rasulullah, your horse lost, and so he just laughed. He said, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. It's okay. You don't have to win all the time. Subhanallah. So, these are all the hadith from the character of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he laughed. He laughed about it. Said, why are you all so upset? Let the horse lose. It's okay. Right. It's not, it's nothing serious. Right. Then, Sayyidina Muhammad. Sayyidina Muhammad. Right. So that is of the life of Sayyidina Aisha with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Of her manaqib. Right. The manaqib of Sayyidina Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, she is someone of high akhlaq. Right? You understand that she came to the house of Rasulullah when she was 9. Right? And Rasulullah passed away when she was 18. She spent every day with him. Every day, from the time she was 9 to the time she was 18, she spent every day with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? She was trained by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Her akhlaq was the highest of akhlaq. Right? She was the most generous, of women that you could find. Right? To the point about they said she would have, 1,000 gold pieces. Right, in the day, right, and she will give out all in charity before nightfall, and she will be fasting in that day, and she will forget about that she is fasting. Right, so she will have nothing to break her fast with. Right, because she gave away all the money. Right, and this actually came from a story in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whereby they had money given to them, right, and Rasulullah gave away everything, and they were too fasting. She and Rasulullah, they were both fasting, right, and he gave away everything in a day. Then when Maghrib came, she said to him, Ya Rasulullah, you give away everything, and now we have nothing to break our fast with. Right, and then he said to her, had you reminded me, I would have kept some. Right, and that was happening in the time of Rasulullah. Thereafter, during her time, she was fasting, and her servant girl was also fasting. And money came to them, and she gave away everything. Same thing repeated itself, right? She gave away everything, and then by the time nightfall came, right, the servant girl said, oh Sayyidah Aisha, right, you gave away everything. Had you kept some, we have something to break our fast with. Right? And she said, had you reminded me, I would have kept it. Right? So she asked Rasulullah at first, and now she's being asked. Right? So she took the trait of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Alhamdulillah, so much to be said about her. It's an entire chapter. I'm just taking like bits and pieces here and there, right? So that you don't, it will be like a few lessons of Sayyidina Aisha. Right, it's endless, right? The lessons here in Sayyidina Aisha. Okay, one thing you want to actually mention about Sayyidina Aisha is her knowledge, right? Her knowledge, her vast knowledge, right? She understood things. She was very sharp. She understood things well, right? And the Sahaba said, we never found a problem except that we would go to Aisha and she would solve it for us. Right? Any issue we had, whether it was worldly or religion, any issue we had, we went to Aisha and she would solve it. Right? She would solve it for us. She was very sharp in her mind, radiallahu ta'ala anha. Right? And she was, she played a very big and enormous role. And when it came to teaching, scholarship in Islam, a lot of it came from Sayyidina Aisha, radiallahu ta'ala anha. Right? And Sayyidina Umrah bin Zubair, right? He said that I have, these are all like her nephews. Right? Those who actually, these are all her nephews. And sometimes when she would, it's narrated when she would see a young boy, right, or a baby, right, whom she can sense that this baby will be somebody who will have, high intellect or will be a great preacher, right? She would ask her sister, right, to breastfeed the baby, so the baby becomes mahram onto her, right? And then she can directly train, right, the baby or educate the baby, right? So she would actually, but most of the time it was her nephews. Right? Her nephews would come to her and they would sit with her, right, and they would gain the knowledge from her. So she had her mahram, right, who will come to her, and they will be the ones, right, who will gain from her. Of course, the other Sahaba did come to her, right, every now and then. Right? But it was mainly her main students were actually those who were mahram onto her, right? Sayyidah Aisha. Right? So he said in a hadith that I have never seen anybody more knowledgeable in fiqh, right? Nor in medicine, nor in poetry than Aisha, right? And if anything were to afflict her in her life, right, she would just, in a sense, like, she would just recite poetry about it, like then. Right, poetry would come to her head and she just recite it. Right, then she was that kind of people whereby when something happens, then they will recite. Right, it means they will compose the poetry there, right, at that moment in time. Right, so it shows the refinement of their character. Right, and there are of the special things about Sayyidah Aisha. Right, of the special things about Sayyidah Aisha, right, is that right, the first special thing we mentioned before, that her marriage to Rasulullah was given in a dream. Right, it was given in a dream. In fact, it happened 3 nights in a row, whereby Rasulullah saw this happen. Right, 3 nights in a row to tell him to marry this girl. That is her first specialty about her. Right, the other wives did not share about her. Right, her marriage was revealed to Rasulullah in his dream. Right, in his dream, it was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, of her other specialties, Sayyidah Aisha, right, is that she was the only one that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam married, and she was virgin. Right, she was the only one. Right, the rest of the wives, no other wives, right, married Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was virgin. This comes a story. It's a very interesting story, lah. Right, whereby once Sayyidina Aisha and Sayyidina Fatima, right, they were in a slight argument, lah. Right, there's some argument going on. Right, and Sayyidina Aisha, right, said to Sayyidina Fatima, right, that your father didn't marry anybody, right, who was a virgin except me. Like saying that your mother, even your mother wasn't, a virgin. Like, saying that she's younger, give her some, some, just be chill about her. She's younger, right? You must understand, she's 9, 10, 11, she says stuff. And miskin, all of these things are recorded of her. And people see her as Sahabiya. How can she say that? The wife of Rasulullah. She's young, she's being trained. Towards the end of her life, she didn't do this kind of things anymore. She did one time when it was recorded, and then, that one time, that was it. So she said to Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, and Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, she got upset lah. Right? She got upset, you can say that about my mother. Right? So she went to Rasulullah and she complained to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Rasulullah's answer, he said, say to Aisha, next time she comes to you about this kind of things, say to her, the wish of you woman married my father and he was virgin. That was his answer to her. Right? So only Sayyidah Khadija. Right? No one else had that. Right, so alhamdulillah. So when Sayyidah Fatima once came on Sayyidah Aisha, and then it came up again, right, and Sayyidah Fatima said it, and Sayyidah Aisha said, I knew it was not from her. I knew it was from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I knew it. Like, he was the one who hit me back. And so they are witty, and they do play. They do play, and they never lie when they play, right? And of the the special things about Sayyidah Aisha, right, is that we mentioned just now, right, the love of Rasulullah onto her, right? It was known, it was well known. Whenever the Sahaba want to ask him something, right, they will make sure that the night was his night inside Aisha's house. Right, then they will actually ask him something, right? This, that he's in a good mood. He's always in a good mood, right? But in a better mood, right? Because he's Sayyidah Aisha, radiallahu ta'ala anha. It's obvious to the Sahaba. It was obvious to the point that the other wives, right? They began to get jealous, right, about it, right? Because they would see that the Sahaba would only come and bring gifts to Rasulullah when he was in the house of Sayyidah Aisha. In their house, they wouldn't do it, right? And then they complained to Rasulullah to tell them not to do that, right? But he said, will you stop them, if they would like to do it, right? So, and of course, when he was asked by Sayyidina Amr bin As, right, Sayyidina Amr bin As at this point, because whenever he would deal with Sahaba, he would give them a lot of attention to the point everybody would feel that they are the most beloved to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Sayyidina Amr bin As was one of those, right, who thought he was the most beloved. So he asked, Ya Rasulullah, right, who is the most beloved of people to you? Right, he thought was going to be his name, right, and he said Aisha. And that was the first answer, Aisha. Right? And then he said, no, I meant from the men. Right? And then he said, Abuha, right, her father. Right? Then, so then he understood, right, the rank of Sayyidina Aisha and Sayyidina Abu Bakr, right, with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? Of the other special things about her, right, is that her innocence was proclaimed, right, in the Quran. Right? Allah proclaimed her innocence when she was slandered. We're going to go into the story later on, right, and we're going to go into the details of the story. Right? Her innocence was proclaimed, right, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, in the heavens. Right? And of the other things that of a special things in Aisha, right, is that when Rasulullah was ill, to the illness that will claim his life, right, he sought permission, right, from the other wives, right, for them to allow him to just stay in the house of Sayyidah Aisha, because it was getting hard for him to keep moving from house to house to the other wives. Which shows to us that if the wives give permission, right, a husband is allowed to actually give a particular wife more, right? So it's, while there should be fairness, but if the other wives, they relinquish their rights, right, and they allow him to be somewhere else when it's their right, that is actually fine. Right? It's fine. They can actually forego their rights, right? And of the traits of Sayyidina Aisha, right, is that Rasulullah passed away in her house, right, on her lap. Right, and she said that of the things that was special for me was that my saliva mixed with his saliva before he passed away. Right, because when he was on his throes of death, right, her brother, right, came in, Abdullah bin Abu Bakr. Right, he came in and he was holding a miswak, and she saw that he was looking at it, so she knew that he wanted the miswak. So she asked, even at the point of death, he wanted his mouth to be clean. Right, so he was looking at it, and she knew that he was on her lap. And he was on her lap, lying down, he was breathing, right? And she saw that he wanted the miswak, so she said, you want the miswak? And he nodded, right? So, and he was very sick, very ill, right? So she took the miswak and she softened it, right, with her own saliva, right? And then she did a siwak onto Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So she said, no, my saliva mixed with his saliva, right? And of her other virtues, Sayyidina Aisha, right, is that wahyu did not come down to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was with his other wives, except Sayyidina Aisha. Of course, Sayyidina Khadijah, she tak payah cakap, right? She's beyond anything, right? Sayyidina Aisha, he would be with her, right, in her home, right, in her bed, right, and wahyu would come to him, right? With the other wives, never, right? Wahyu would not come to him when he was with the other wives, right? Only Sayyidina Aisha actually got that special thing. Right. So we mentioned about the one that where she said, Allah has replaced you with better, right? The one is about Sayyidah Khadijah, right? So whereby there are some who got upset with her and said that, Wallahi, I swear by Allah, he has not replaced by better, he has not replaced by better, he has not replaced by... 3 times he said to Sayyidah Aisha. Sayyidah got very scared because he got very upset that she spoke about Sayyidah Khadijah in that way. I said, no, Wallahi, he did not replace it better, he did not replace it better, he did not replace it better. And for surely she was the one who stood by me when the rest of the people betrayed me. Right? She spent her wealth and herself on me, and from her I got children. Right? So nobody can replace Sayyidah Khadijah. Nobody can even come close to Sayyidah Khadijah. You all, you all are in your own race. Right? She's in a race on her own. You cannot even race in her race. Right? Sayyidah Khadijah radiallahu ta'ala anha. This book, when you do it about Sayyidah Khadijah, the entire, this is her first part of Sayyidah Khadijah. Right? Then they go Sayyidah Aisha. Right? They actually go deep into Sayyidah Khadijah radiallahu anha. Alhamdulillah. Alright, so we're going to continue from there. Right? And we're going to go into the second year of Hijrah. Second year of Hijrah, that year, fasting was prescribed. Right? The law of fasting came down. Right? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyam. Right? O you who believe, fasting has been ordained unto you. In that year also, actually before that, right? Before the first year, fighting was already prescribed. Right? So, O you who believe, kutiba alaykumul qital. Right? Fighting is written wa huwa kurhul lakum. Right? Even though you don't like it, right? And then it's more of Rasulullah, you don't like to fight. Right? So, but it has been prescribed. Right? And we mentioned before, right? When the law of fighting came down to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? He went out by himself. He actually went out by himself, right? To go and we mentioned they would intercept the caravans. Because the Meccans they were taking the wealth of the believers, right? So they would actually intercept the caravans. In this, that's what it means by fighting lah. And fighting back, taking our stuff. Actually, they're fighting back, right? So Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has allowed the believers to do that. One of the first few ghazwas, one of the first few expeditions that he will go to, right? When I say ghazwa, I don't mean specifically battle. I mean expedition, right? Because most of the time they didn't fight. They will go all the way there and they will come all the way back. Right, there will be no combat, right, to say. So the first one that he actually partook in, the Sahaba, right, was the one at Abwa. If Abwa rings a bell, right, in your mind, it is a place where Sayyidah Aminah passed away. Right, is that place, right, between Mecca and Medina. So they went to that place, right, and they were supposed to intercept the caravan, but they missed the caravan. Right, and while he was there, right, he actually took a treaty with one of the tribes that was there. Right, so one of the benefits of them, right, having this being allowed to go out for expeditions was that they would meet tribes along the way. Right, and these tribes would come to them and approach them, and they would have allegiance, right, allegiance and peace treaty with the tribes. Right, from there, Islam managed to spread. Right, and the effects of Islam would be in the tribes that was around, because there were tribes that were like nomads. Right, nomads going around, right? So basically, he would meet these tribes, and they would pledge allegiance to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right. So at Abwa, right, and we remember that there's a place where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's mother was buried, and there are narrations that say that he did go past her grave. He knew exactly where it was. Right? It was not, even though she passed away when he was 6 years old, it was clear in his mind, the memory. Right? Remember, Rasulullah was never non-mumayyiz. He was mumayyiz from the beginning. From the time he was born, he was mumayyiz. Right? He was never in the point whereby he didn't understand what's going on. He always understood. He had the mind of an adult, right, from the beginning. Right? So when his mother passed away when he was 6 years old, he knew exactly what was going on. And he remembered exactly his mother. And he remembered how she was, the way she would speak to him, right, the way they were, the two of them. He knew everything. He remembered everything about his mother exactly. Right? So even when she passed away, he himself remembered what she said. At the point of which I actually told the story in the beginning of this class. These classes of the life of Rasulullah. Right? So when he went back to that place Abwa, right, he could actually bring the Sahaba to the grave of Sayyidah Aminah. Anha, till today it is known, right, where is her grave. You can actually go and look out for her grave and find her grave if you want to lah. Right, but it's not something that is, it's not, there's no mark whatsoever, right? It's basically an abandoned place, and people there, they don't want to aggrandize such things, right? So Allahu Alam. Right, so I don't even know if anyone will actually bring you there, right? Unless there are people of the area who know how to get to these places, right? Allahu Alam. Right, so then the command. So he was going out to intercept the caravans from the Quraysh. I'm going to draw something on the board, right, to explain this. Did I draw it last week? Those who were here, I didn't draw anything for you all. All right, okay. So let me show you. Marker. Is there a marker there? Okay, this happened in Jumadul Akhir, right? So it was quite a bit before Ramadan. We're going to go into the Battle of Badr. So I'm not going to go and explain every single battle, right? Because there are many, there are 47, right, that he sent the Sahabas out on. 27 he took part in. Right? So there's a lot of, and to the point whereby the ulama, they say that when the law of battle came down, right, it was as if they would go out for a week or 2 weeks and come back to Medina, and they'll be in Medina for about 3 days, and they'll go out again. So it was continuous battles, like out, in, out, in, out, in. So they were never really set in Medina for very long. And which is why, it was important, right, that they had to have the peace treaty at Hudaybiyah later on. Because that gave, it gave security, and it gave peace to the land. So now they can develop, with their da'wah, with their education, because they're not being, the time is not being taken up by battles. Because right now you're going to see it's being taken up by battles. Right, so here, right, what you're going to see, right, so here, the Arabian Peninsula looks like this. Right, this is Yemen, right? This is the Red Sea. Okay, it's squarish in its form, right? The Arabian Peninsula, right? So Mecca, Jeddah is coastal. This is Jeddah. Right, Mecca is a bit inland, right? Not so inland, right? But a bit. Okay, Medina is even more inland. Alright? And up there is Sham. Right? Which is basically modern day Syria. Right? Basically Syria, Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon. Right? The entire area is called Sham. Alright. The Meccans, right, they in Surah Quraysh, right, you will know that they have their Rihla, Shita'i, was Saif. Right? They will go in the winter, in the summer, they will travel up, travel down for their trade. Right? When they go down, they will go down to Yemen. This is Yemen. Yemen gets goods from India. Right? It all makes sense, right? Yemen gets goods from India. Sham, Syria, gets goods from China. Right? And the Romans. Right? So you see where it all comes from. When I was in Syria, I met a lot of Chinese. Because they will come down from China. So for them, it's the nearest part. Right? For them to learn Islam, Syria is near. I never met any Chinese in Yemen. Right? But you meet the Africans. In Yemen, you find a lot of Africans, right? Because they come from the Horn of Africa, right? This part they come over, right? And you meet the Indians, right? But in Sham, I met the Russians, right? I met the Chinese, right? So basically, for them, it's near, right? They're all in the area, right? Those Central Asian people, which I never met any of them in Yemen. They all didn't come from the Yemen, right? So, Sayyidina Muhammad, right? So now they're at Medina, right? We mentioned also in the previous lessons that the change of the Qibla happened. Right, it happened. We mentioned that. We also mentioned the adhan, right, being introduced. Did I mention the story of the adhan? No? Okay. Another time I'll mention the story about the adhan. I think it just flew past me. It's in my book, but it flew past me. Right, the adhan was also instituted, right, how the adhan came about. Right, it was through a dream. But there is a long story because I want to go into the story of Bilal. Right, if we go into the story of adhan, we go into the story of Bilal. Right, so what happened was that the people of Mecca, right, they would have their trade going up to Syria and coming down to Yemen. Right? And it's huge trade because you go out to Syria and they will buy. In Syria, the trade there is humongous, right? Because of China and Russia and Rome, right? And from Europe coming down. So a lot of goods that you can actually buy, trade, and then you can bring down to Mecca to be central, and people of Yemen will come up and buy. Right? So Mecca was a trading center, right? Because the Kaaba was there also. So everybody would congregate in Mecca. That's why the Meccans were very, very rich. Right, they were very rich because of this situation going on. Okay, so what's happening is that the Meccans know now that the Muslims are now in Medina. Right? And when they want to go up to Syria, they have to go past Medina to go up to Syria. Right? So now that the law of fighting has come down and they're allowed to fight, so what's going to happen? The Muslims will ambush. Right? They will ambush, they will intercede. Right, they will intercept the caravans of the disbelievers and take. And it is allowed for them, it's halal for them. Right, you must understand it's halal for them. They're at war. It is a war situation. They're at war. It is halal for them to actually do this. Right, to intercept the caravans, and also the Meccans, the disbelievers were taking their stuff. Anyway, right, so they were allowed to intercept the caravans. Okay, so what happened in Battle Badr? So the Muslims have been doing this on and off. Right, whenever they will hear this caravan from Mecca going up to Sham, right, Rasulullah will get the believers, gather them, and they will go out, right, march out to try and intercept the caravans. Right, most often they will miss the caravan. The caravan will go before them, and when they got there, the caravan has gone ahead, and you can't catch up. You can't catch up, right? You have to intercept, right? You can't actually catch up with the caravans. Right? So they always have to preempt, right? That when they hit it, so they must always have spies going on in Mecca to tell them quickly that someone's leaving. Right, Mecca with a huge caravan of camels and wealth, right? You want to intercept or not, right? So then they will go out and try to intercept. Very few they got, right? So Badr, see what happened in Badr, Abu Sufyan, right? So Abu Sufyan, at this time, he was not a believer, right? He was not a believer at this time. He had a huge caravan, right? The caravan of Abu Sufyan, right, was 1,000 camels. Right, the wealth was, in the tens of thousands of dirhams, right, in wealth, a huge caravan he was going out, and this was the wealth of the people of Mecca. It means he was going to bring this wealth to Syria to trade on their behalf. So it means almost everybody in Mecca had a stake in this caravan. Right? Everybody had a stake in this caravan. Right? So it was a major caravan. Right? So when he left Mecca, news reached Rasulullah ﷺ that Abu Sufyan had left Mecca, right, on the way to Syria, to Sham, right, with a huge caravan of huge wealth, right, of major wealth, right. So, Sayyidina Muhammad, right. So Rasulullah went out with the Sahaba, right, to intercept Abu Sufyan's caravan, right. But Abu Sufyan was too fast and he passed Medina before the people of Medina could actually intercept his caravan. And so they missed him. They missed him going up. But when you go up, you have to come back. You have to come back. So now the Muslims were standby. Right, they were on standby. They knew he's going to come back after a while. Right, so they had their spies going on, right, to hear when will Abu Sufyan actually come back down. Abu Sufyan, he knew the Muslims missed him. He knew it. So he knew coming back might be a problem. Right, he knew it's going to be an issue coming back because he knew that. So now they know that I'm here in Sham. They're going to be on standby, right, waiting for me to come back, pass by Medina. And the thing about it is the entire place is a desert. So there are many routes that a person can take. Right, so they say there are spies going back and forth, right, to tell which way are they going, where should you stand, where should the ambush be, and the moment it's ready, you have to be on mark, because if it's a desert, you can't like from far, oh they're there, and run all the way there. You can't, it's too far away, right? You have to be on mark. So Abu Sufyan now he's in Syria, right? So Abu Sufyan passed by Medina, he's here, right? He's in Syria. He's coming down and he is nervous. He's so nervous. He's nervous about this. He knows that the believers, the Muslims in Medina, and the Muslims are here, right? They are in ambush. They are waiting, right, for him to come back. Because if he went with a great amount of wealth, he will come back with a greater amount of wealth, greater than what he went with. And that's the point of trade, right? You actually get profit, right? So the Muslims are in wait of Abu Sufyan. Abu Sufyan is coming down towards Mecca, right? He is anxious, right? He sends a messenger. His name was Damdam al-Ghifari. He sends a messenger down to Mecca. This messenger was paid by Abu Sufyan to go to Mecca and tell people of Mecca that Muhammad and his companions are out to take your stuff, to take your things. Right? They're out to take your wealth because everybody in Mecca has a stake, we mentioned. Everybody in Mecca has a stake. Right? So he sent this Damdam al-Ghifari, right, down, right, to Mecca, right, to actually warn the people of Mecca. Before this man, Damdam al-Ghifari, came into Mecca, right, the auntie of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Atika, right, she was in Mecca. Right? So in Mecca, you have his aunt, and there's Sayyidina Abbas, right, Aunt Atika. Right? At that point, she was not Muslim yet. She will become Muslim thereafter. Right? So she had a dream. She had a very clear dream. Right? And in her dream, right, she saw that a man came. So in her dream, she saw a man came on a camel. Right? And the man came and said to the Quraysh, Quraysh be warned, Quraysh be warned. In 3 days, you will be destroyed. Right? Quraysh be warned. And he went up to on top of the Kaaba and he said, Quraysh be warned. Oh, Quraysh be warned. In 3 days, you will be destroyed. This is of the meaning. Like the Arabic was a bit different, right, but of the meaning. Then he went up the mountain and he said, oh Quraysh, listen to me. In a dream, she saw, right, be warned, in 3 days, you will be destroyed. Right? And then the man took a huge rock from top of the mountain, and in a dream, and threw it down into Mecca. And the rocks smashed into small pieces, and every piece entered every household. Right? There was, each of the small pieces, they entered every house in Mecca. So she woke up, she was terrified of her dream. Right? She went to her brother Abbas, Sayyidina Abbas, and she told him her dream. Right? She told me her dream, and he said, "This is a major dream. Right? Something's about to happen to the Quraysh. Right? A major blow is going to happen to the Quraysh very, very soon." And he said to her, "Don't tell anybody." Right? She said, "Okay, I won't tell anyone about my dream." Right? Sayyidina Abbas, he went out. Right, he saw his friend, Walid bin Mughira, right? And he spoke to his friend, and while conversing, he mentioned his sister's dream. But he said, don't tell anyone. It's supposed to be secret. This one goes home, goes to his father, right? And then he tells the father what Abbas said, and said, don't tell anyone, right? It's a major dream, it's a secret. Before you knew it, the whole Mecca knew about this dream. Right? That's right, the whole.
Abbas doing on purpose?
He didn't know. Everybody told one person, and told that one person not tell anybody else. And everyone told one person, told that one not tell anybody else. The entire Mecca knew about it. So it came to the ears of Abu Jahl. So Abu Jahl came up to Abbas and said, "Oh Abbas, you Bani Hashim, Bani Muttalib, Bani Hashim. It's not enough for you to have one prophet. Now even your women want to be prophets." It's Abu Jahl.
It's annoying, right, Abu Jahl? He's so annoying. When you read about his hadith, he's such an annoying character. And then now your woman want to be prophets, telling us about her dreams, right? She can predict the future, is it? Huh? That kind of thing. The hadith, that's how he spoke. Do you think she can predict the future? And she said to Abbas, I swear, Abbas, if in 3 days nothing happens to us, we will declare the Bani Hashim the biggest liars. Right? It's in 3 days, nothing happens. Within 3 days, this Damdam al-Ghifari comes. Right? And he goes around declaring to the Quraysh, he does as what it was in the dream, but his declaration was, Quraysh, destruction. You know, your caravan is being attacked by the Muslims, being attacked by Muhammad and the Muslims. Destruction. And this Damdam al-Ghifari, he was like you call it a drama, you know, full. You know what he did? He tore his shirt, right? You know, had tears everywhere, and he cut his own nose, and his mouth and his cheek, to make sure that he's like, you know, disheveled and bloody. And he put blood all over his clothes, right? As if he just escaped from the war. As if. None of this happened. He just did this entire huge, you know, display, you know, this entire drama, right? And he ran into Mecca and he made a huge scene. Right, this Damdam al-Ghifari, right? Huge scene, right? To spur up the people. The Muslims are taking your stuff, you better go. You know, Abu Sufyan is asking for your help, you go right now. So Abu Jahl, you know, he's like, get up, everybody get up, our stuff, let's go and, you know, fight Muhammad. Right, so now they are, you know, fanning the war, the fires of war, you know, that making it go ablaze. Right, so people begin to gather their things. Right, but they remember, some of them remembered the dream of Atika, right, Sayyidah Atika, which basically was interpreted that, and thereafter was interpreted that this thing about the man that took the rock and threw, right, and the bits of the rock that scattered entered into every household, was that in the Battle of Badr, every household will face a loss. Every household in Mecca will face a loss. Right? That was how much the Muslims won over the disbelievers. It means there were so many of the disbelievers who died, who were killed in that battle. Right? So it means every household will face a loss, right, in the Battle of Badr. Right? So but Abu Jahl, he's arrogant. Abu Jahl, I was telling my nephew this now, he was just watching me watch Habib. Then he was like, what Habib say? Right? And then I told him, okay, you know what Habib said? Abu Jahl. And you know what it means? Abu Jahl. Abu Jahl, in the hadith, he's described to be fakham, and which means he's big. Right? He's tall, and he's very big. I mean, he was fat, Abu Jahl. And he's actually very fat. He has like big arms, like very, very pudgy. Right? Abu Jahl, but big and tall. He's not short and stout. He's big, tall, huge man, Abu Jahl. Right? So when he goes around and he sneers. And he sneers at people, he makes fun of people. There was once, there's also a narration before this. There was a man, right, Sa'ad bin Mu'ad. Right, Sa'ad bin Mu'ad, he's a Muslim. Right, during the time when someone went out for his expedition, right, because expeditions are not compulsory, because he just wants to intercept the caravans. They are not war. It's not war. Right, it's just going out to intercept caravans. So there was this believer, Sa'ad bin Mu'ad. He came down to Mecca to do Umrah. When he was in Mecca, he has a friend in Mecca who was a disbeliever, Umayyah. Right, Umayyah bin Khalaf, he's one of the big, disbelievers, the one that tortured Bilal. That's Umayyah bin Khalaf. Right, so he came down, he met his friend, right? His friend is this believer, right? And with his friend, so he asked his friend, I want to do my Umrah. Right, when is the best time that I can do my tawaf without being seen by the people? Because he's a believer, right? So the friends, Umayyah bin Khalaf said, in Zohar time, right? Zohar time, nobody comes out, it's too hot. Right, he said, okay, let's go. Right, so at Zohar time, they went out together and they were doing tawaf when Abu Jahl appeared. Right, Abu Jahl tak kerja. He just appears out of nowhere. Right, he's always there, Abu Jahl. So Abu Jahl walking, and he saw this, Sa'ad bin Mu'ad, and Abu Jahl was like, hey, you, right, you're not a believer. Hey, you're a believer. Right, get out. Right, don't be in Mecca. We don't want you here. Right, and Umayyah bin Khalaf said, don't speak to him that way. He's my guest. Right, that means he's housing his friend, right? And they began to argue, and there's like a huge argument going on with them, right? And so what happened was that Sa'ad bin Mu'ad said to Abu Jahl during the argument, right? Because Abu Jahl he tried pasal basically, he created problems with this Sa'ad bin Mu'ad. Sa'ad bin Mu'ad said to Abu Jahl, I heard the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, right, that you all will be killed very soon. That means he will kill all of you very soon, right? That means, and then Abu Jahl said, "Are you sure?" That he said that. You know what I mean? In arrogance lah. So when this thing came and appeared, right, they remembered those words, right? So Umayyah bin Khalaf, he also got scared, right? Because they know, and he went to Abu Jahl, he said, to Abu Jahl, you know Muhammad does not lie. You know Muhammad does not lie. If he said we will be killed, we will be killed. We know it. We know it. Right? There's no way around it. But Abu Jahl is so arrogant, right? So blinded by his arrogance. He doesn't even want to see, right, all of these signs that going out is a terrible idea, right, to actually go out and fight the Muslims. But he's greedy. And he saw that, oh, we have 1,000 plus people. They only have 300. We're going to go and just smash them out. Just push, put them off. Right? And then there'll be no more Muslims in this world. Our problems are all solved. Right? So subhanAllah, that was how they saw the situation. Right? And there were a lot of, there was another disbeliever, forgot his name, Umayyah bin Khalaf's brother, Ubay bin Khalaf. Right? Ubay bin Khalaf, there was once in Mecca, right? He had his horses. He was good with his horses. And he was feeding his horses, like good grain and whatsoever to make the horses strong. Right? And once Rasul walked past, and he said, "Yo, Muhammad, see my horses? I'm feeding them good grain, make them very strong. Because on them, I will fight you and kill you." Right? And because he kept saying it, and then Rasul walked past, he kept saying it. And Rasul turned around, so finally Rasul turned around to him and said, "Insha'Allah, I will kill you." Like, he kept saying it, right? So and he was of the disbelievers lah. So, and he got scared. Because they know that Muhammad never lies. He never lies, right? So it's this happened in the Battle of Uhud later on, right? Because he will come out in Battle of Uhud, and this hadith is mentioned because Rasul never killed anybody except for this one guy, because he said he never killed in battle. Right? He would always be on the defense. Because anyone who would die on the hands of the Prophet ﷺ, they're in hellfire straight away. There's no chance for them. Khalas. Right? So he will always, even though he was forefront in the battle, but he will always be blocking off blows. Right? But never, on the offense. Right? But with this man, right, all he did, said Rasulullah, was that his weapon, right, just hit, was a tap on the man's neck, like a tap. There was no mark, nothing. There was no mark, there was no blood, nothing on his neck. Right? So when it hit him like that, he fell off his beast, right, his animal, and he was like, "Muhammad has killed me, Muhammad has killed me, Muhammad has killed me." And the disbelievers came around him and said, like, "What's wrong with you?" Yeah, Muhammad has killed me, look. And like, there's nothing there. Right? He just hit you with a small tap. Right? Why are you saying? He said, "No, he said that he will kill me and he will kill me." Like, it was, they had the yaqeen so strong. That he is true. Right? So subhanAllah, they know he's right. They know he's true. And he kept complaining, he kept saying, no, it's not just a small blow. He gave me a death blow. It's a death blow. Right? And true enough, he died from that blow. Right? Because the word of Rasulullah is true. Right? Even a blow, small tap. Right? But there's the Battle of Uhud. Right? So alhamdulillah, right, it's already 9:30. We'll go on a bit more. Just a bit more. Right? So now Abu Sufyan is coming down. Right? He sent this, Damdam al-Ghifari ahead. Right? And his Damdam al-Ghifari, right, goes ahead and does this big scene. Abu Sufyan is still nervous. Right? He wants to go straight down to Mecca. He don't like taking other routes. Because other routes, more time, more money, more, basically you're going to spend more time on the road. Right? You want to reach Mecca as soon as possible, which means going past Medina. So Abu Sufyan, being the smart man that he is, right, what he did was, right, and he's, mashallah, radiallahu anhu, we should say that. Abu Sufyan, radiallahu anhu, at this point he was not a believer, right, so he, actually as he was coming down, he caused his camels to wait for a while, his caravan, to wait for a while. Right? He went down by himself to recce, more so, to recce the land, see what's going on. Right? He went down by himself to just, look around, what's going on, where are the Muslims, where are they hiding? And they're going to find out where they are. Right? So he saw a Bedouin, right, of course a disbeliever. So he came near the Bedouin and he said, "Have you seen any activity in these areas? Like anyone gone past here?" Right? And the Bedouin said, "Yes, we saw 2 men." Right? And then he asked, "Do you know where they're from?" She said, "No. But we saw 2 men that came here, right? And they asked us, about the Quraysh and about Muhammad." So they don't know whether these two men are from the Quraysh or they are from the Muslims. And who are these two men, right? So he said they just came and they asked us about the Quraysh and Muhammad. We don't really know who they are or where they are from, right? So Abu Sufyan said, do you know where they were in this area? So they were around that area. They said under that tree, they were around that area. So Abu Sufyan went there. He's very smart. These are people of the desert. He went down. He saw the dung of the camels, right, that were there, right? So he went down, he picked up all the dung, and he broke it. It's dry. And he broke it, and he found inside the seeds of dates. And when he found the seeds of dates, these camels are from Medina. Right? It's Medina is where the dates are. Right? So these camels are from Medina. They were the Muslims that came around here, which means the Muslims are around this area. So he freaked out. He got very scared. He ran back to his camels, and there is no choice right now. He brought them along the sea route. It means they avoid the entire area. The Muslims are where? They are here. Right? So Abu Sufyan, right, he thought about it. He made a decision, which was a correct decision. He brought the camels around here, and now they have passed by Medina. They are safe. They're safe. Right? The Muslims missed Abu Sufyan's caravan. They missed. They missed the first time around, they missed the second time around. They always miss caravans. So it's not like you see, they went out for how many ghazwa, why they're always fighting. No, they actually go out and they miss caravans, just come back after that. Even Tabuk, when they went all the way up, all to Syria, there was nobody there. They came back. That was it. Right. So what happened was that the two men that the mushrik saw was Rasulullah and Sayyidina Abu Bakr. Right. They had come out. To go and scour. I look around, and then they saw this man, this mushrik, and they asked him, has anyone been here? Right? Or do you have any news about Muhammad and the disbelievers? And the man had no clue who they were. So the man said, who are you? Right? And they said, you tell us your news, and we'll tell us our news, and who we are. Right? And then the man said, well, I heard that the Muslims are in this area. They're somewhere around here. So the Muslims, I heard it somewhere around here, right? And they are, of a size of 300 around there, right? So see, that's how the spies they really spread the news, right? And I hear that these believers are about to come, and I hear that Abu Sufyan is on his way down, right? So basically, they gave the Muslims the idea that Abu Sufyan is coming down this way. This happened before Abu Sufyan spoke to that person, right? So they were right. So the believers, Rasulullah and Sayyidina Abu Bakr spoke to that man before Abu Sufyan spoke to him, right? They were the two riders that the man saw. Right, they were Rasulullah and Sayyidina Abu Bakr. So then the man asked, where are you all from? Right, and Rasulullah said, min Ma. Right, we are from Ma. Right, Ma is the name of a tribe in Iraq. Right, but what he meant is water lah. We're from water, because he can't say that we are the Muslims. Then they were exposed. Right, that the Muslims came by here, so that means they're around this area. Right, but Abu Sufyan, he found out eventually anyway through the dung of the camels. Right, that the dung of the camels had seeds in them. Right, so alhamdulillah. Right. So see, Abu Sufyan is now safe. There is no need for war right now. Right. So it's Abu Jahl. He's the one who's fanning the flames of war. Right. So, and this is one I actually want to really go through this one today. All right. If we can. All right. Any question? No. All right. So it's a bit more. Now I will pause there. All right. So what happened was that Abu Sufyan, he sends a message to Mecca saying that the caravan is safe. He took the sea route, right? And so Muhammad and his companions missed him, right? And the Muslims now, they know they missed Abu Sufyan. They heard from the spies that Abu Sufyan took a different route, and they missed Abu Sufyan. Khalas, right? He's gone with his caravan and he's on his way to Mecca safely. So the news reached the people of Mecca. The people of Mecca now, they say, okay, abandon mission. Right, our caravans are safe. We were only going to go out for war because we were afraid for our caravans. Abu Sufyan said, Abu Jahl said, you cowards, are you ladies, you girls? This is in the hadith. And he called them, you're going to sit down with the girls, with the women. And the Arabs, you cannot do that. The moment you call them, you're like the woman, you're going to sit down in your homes, not go out for war. Right, you're not courageous enough, you're not strong. Right, the moment you challenge them in that way, they are like, no, let's go. Right, so when the news came to them, right, they wanted to actually retract. They wanted to go back, retreat to Mecca. They wanted to go for war. Right, and in fact, a lot of them were saying, it's our own family. The Muhajirun are from Mecca. They are our own cousins, our own uncles, our own brothers. I don't want to fight our own family. Right? We can't fight our own family. It's against our, it's against the culture of the Arabs. You don't fight your own family. Right? So, but Abu Jahl was going around, flaming, igniting the flames of war and saying, we're so many and they're so few. And they're not even prepared. They came out to intercept caravan. They have no weapons on them. Right? And here, we understand. Right? And then Abu Jahl did that. See, So now, we're going to zoom in. So the Muslims, they have come out. They missed the caravan altogether. Abu Sufyan is already on the way to Jeddah. The disbelievers are prepared for war. They're about to leave Mecca. I mean, in fact, some of the narrations, they have left Mecca, they're on their way to Badr. Right? So the news reached them that, hey, Abu Sufyan is safe, let's go back. Right? And Abu Jahl, so they're already on their way. Right? So they don't want to go back. They don't want to fight their own family members. Abu Jahl said, no, let's go. Just go. Right? Let's go and just destroy the believers, if the Muslims, if they are there. If they're not there, if they cowered out and they run back to Medina, then we just have a party at Badr. Right? There was there. And he's in the hadith. We're going to sing. We're going to have our camels. We're going to feast. We're going to slaughter camels. We're going to have our women dancing around. We're going to sing all of our Arabic poetry. We're going to have a good time and drink alcohol and come back. Right? This is his hadith. His words, Abu Jahl. Right? So he Jahl. Really Jahl. Right? So basically, this is Badr. Let me show you Badr. This is Badr. Okay? Right. Let me just give you the facts of what's going on here. Right, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is my blue one. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right. So you see, Muslims. How many? 313. Right. Only 313 Muslims coming out. Of which, only 60 plus, or maybe 64. 64 are the Muhajirun. Which means what? 200 plus, right? From the Ansar. It means majority who? Ansar. Majority Ansar. Must understand what's going on and the dynamics of the war. Right? The Meccans, the disbelievers right? 1,000 strong. Okay, 1,000 of them. In fact, more. So 1,300 it was said. Right, more than 1,000. Right, so 1,000 plus going up. Right, they're all Meccans. If they're Muslims, they had about 70 camels. Right, so which means if you look at this, how many people to a camel? If you divide it, right, you can see about 3 or 4 people to a camel. Right, 70 camels, 2 horses. 300 people, 2 horses. Because they went out to intercept a caravan. They didn't go out for war. Right? They were not really prepared for war. They didn't have the shields on, they didn't have the things. They only had 8 swords. This is the statistics going on here. 8 swords. Everybody else had arrows, bows and arrows, right? They have some sort of weaponry, but swords, these believers, 1,000 of them, each had a camel. Each had camel, plus more for food. They would slaughter their camels for food. Right? They had 70 plus horses. Right? They were out for a full-fledged war. Right? And they had, each had a sword. Look at the statistics. What's going on here? It's like Abu Jahl's like, let's go and finish them off. What are you all waiting for? Just kill them off. It's a chance. Extinguish the light of Islam. Extinguish. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and they want to extinguish the light of Allah, but Allah refuses except that His light be spread. Right? So they will go out, right? And this is the statistics. I want to mention one thing before we close for tonight. This incident, when it reached the believers, when it reached Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this has happened. They lost the caravan, right? So now already they lost the caravan. The believers, they keep losing the caravans. Alhamdulillah, Allah tests them. Right? They lost the caravan. And the disbelievers are now coming out full strength, marching towards them to fight. Rasulullah SAW sees the companions. He gathers them to consult. Right, let's consult. What should we do? Should we run back to Medina or should we stay and fight? What should we do? And here you see the beauty in the prophethood of Rasulullah SAW. Beauty in his prophethood. Whereby he came, and I will quote the hadith. He came, right, and he called the Sahaba, right, and he said to the Sahaba, right, what has happened. He informed them what has happened, right. Now we have a choice: do we go back or do we stay and fight? So the first one to stand up and speak was Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. He stood up and he said, Ya Rasulullah, let's go and fight. Right, whatever you want, we will do. Let's go and fight. And some praised him and told him to sit down. Then he asked again, what should we do? Meaning the answer of Sayyidina Abu Bakr was not enough. He asked again the Sahaba, what should we do? And then Sayyidina Umar, radiallahu anhu, he got up and he said the same thing as Sayyidina Abu Bakr said, Ya Rasulullah, go and fight. We will be with you as you fight. Rasulullah praised him and said, sit down. Right? And he asked a third time, what should we do? Right, what should we do? And then at this point, Miqdad bin Amr, right, who's of the Muhajirun, right, of the people who hijrah, he stood up and he said, Ya Rasulullah, go to whatever Allah shows you. Right, go and do whatever Allah shows you. We will be with you. And he says, for surely we swear by Allah, we will not say like what the Bani Israel said to Nabi Musa. When Nabi Musa was at the edge of Palestine and said, Allah says to enter and fight. And they said, we will sit here. You and your God go and fight. We will sit here waiting. When you're done, tell us. Right? But he said, we will not say as how they said, but we will say, go and fight. We are with you fighting. Right? So Rasulullah SAW was very pleased with the answer. And he prayed, he dua for that Sahabi, right, and said, sit down. And he asked again, what should we do? It's not enough. What should we do? Then at this point, Sayyidina Sa'ad bin Mu'adh, right, Sayyidina Sa'ad bin Mu'adh, right, he got up. And now he spoke. Right, so because it is the first three who spoke, they are from the Muhajirin. Yes. And Rasulullah being a leader, he sees what's going on. The enemy are who? The people of Mecca. People of Medina have nothing to do with the situation at all. Right? They have their own wealth in Medina. They have their own farms and whatsoever. They have nothing to do with the situation. Majority of the people who are with him right now are who? From Medina. Like if he wants to decide to go for war, he needs to consult them. Are you all ready to go for war for us? Because basically you have no business in this. It's us and our families, right, who are fighting us. Right? So the three people who stood up were all Muhajirun. They were not what Rasul wanted. He was asking the people of Medina. And the people of Medina caught on. Right? So they caught on, right? And I'll read what they say because it's so beautiful. And they will stop there. Right? So then he says, after that time he says, tell me your opinion, O people, tell me your opinion. Right? And he was actually intending the Ansar. He was looking at them. Right? And then they got it. And Sa'ad bin Mu'adh, right, who was of the leaders of the Ansar, he stood up and he said, Wallahi, walaka annaka turiduna ya Rasulullah. I swear by Allah, it's as if you want us to answer. Ajal. And he said, of course you. I want your answer. I want to know what you all say. Right? See how diplomatic Rasulullah is and how he's really looking at everybody. Without just deciding, let's go for war. Let's go and fight. Right? But you have to understand, 200 of them have nothing to do with this. It's none of their business. Right? It's only you 60, right, who have issues with the people of Mecca. Right? It's not about, and they only went out to intercept, right, the caravan. War, full-fledged war, 300 against 1,000. You have to ask these people, how's it going to happen? You see the kind of, this character of Rasulullah, it really shows at this point. Right? So he says, yes, I'm asking you. I want your opinion. And this is the answer. The answer is so beautiful. So Sayyidina Sa'ad bin Mu'adh, he was somebody who was of speech. He could speak very well. He knew how to articulate, and when you read his answer, you're like, hands down. He knew how to speak to Rasulullah. So he said, Ya Rasulullah, faqad amanna bik. For surely we have believed you. Fasaddaqnak. And we have trusted you. We believe you and we trust you. Wa shahidna anna ma ji'ta bihi huwal haq. And we bear witness that whatever you have come with, for surely it is true. He begins his speech in that way. Before he says, yes, he will come with you, he begins that way. That we have believed in you, Ya Rasulullah. Given our lives for you. We trust you. And we know what you come with is true. Right? And what we have given you, he says, I'm going to give you the English. What we have given you of our promise, right, and our covenant, right, it is on listening and obeying. We have promised you, we will hear and you will obey. We have given this in our covenant and our promise to you. We have given this. So go, Ya Rasulullah. Go wherever you want to go. And I swear by the one in whose soul, I swear by the one who has sent you with the truth. And it says by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I swear by the one who has sent you with the truth. Right? Even if you go with us through the sea, right? And you were to go, and you will go there to the sea, right? And you will go into the sea, we will go with you. We will follow you all the way there, right? We will not hold back. We will be with you, right? Not a single man of us, right, will turn his back on you. Nobody. Everybody will be with you. Right? And whatever, right, that you will meet of the enemy tomorrow, right, for surely we will be patient and perseverant on the war, right, on the fighting, right, and we believe in this meeting, right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and perhaps Allah, right, would want to see from us what will make you pleased in this war. May Allah cause you to see from us what you will be pleased with, Ya Rasulullah. So go with us wherever you want by the blessing of Allah. The answer, and it's not just a yes answer. It's just like, it's just they express themselves fully to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Go, and there are a few narrations what she said, but that was what it was, right? So for sure, and it was described that after that, right, the face of Rasulullah was so happy, he began to glow. Right, light came from his face. He was glowing. He was so pleased with the answer of Sayyidina Sa'ad bin Mu'az. Right, and then they made a decision they were going to go and fight. Right, so inshallah next week we'll continue with Battle Badr. Right, so understand the battles. Right, understand the battles. It's not just fighting. There's a lot of things that goes around. Right, here you see the great akhlaq of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You will see more of this, right, as we go into the details of this battle. Right, are there any questions? But in our first 10 days of Zulhijjah, right, so just remember your fasting, your la ilaha illallah, right, subhanallah, Allahu Akbar, your tasbih, your takbir, your hamd, your alhamdulillah, and your tahleel, right, la ilaha illallah, do it in abundance, right, inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us this in these great days. Increase your Quran recitation if you're not, right, have more Quran in these days. Right, and inshallah, next week, right, there will still be class. Right, I don't think you're one off for Yamu Tashriq, right? We're in Singapore, we just get one day, right? Hari Raya kan Wednesday. So Thursday night we probably still have class. Right, inshallah still have class. We'll continue Battle Badr, inshallah. Right. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Al-Fatiha. أن الله يرزقنا إيمان نافع مال خالص مقبول وحسن تعاني من دلالة على الهدى ويسر به قلب النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم وإلى أرواح معلمين ومشايخنا وذوي الحقوق علينا وإلى حضرة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. الفاتحة. I'm going to read the dua after the Maulid later. So those ones stay on now. Very fast. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم